Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Star Wars News and Views. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different because I'm not actually going to be talking about anything Star Wars related. We're working on our Fan Expo video right now, should be up by the weekend, but so what are we going to be talking about then? Well, I collect a lot of different things, and I'm starting to get rid of a few parts of my collection that I haven't, touched in a decade and a half, so what's the point in having it? So I might as well give it to a good home, someone that's going to appreciate it. And one of the things I used to collect was back in the day, the video company Anchor Bay would do collector's limited edition VHS tapes of old horror movies from the 80s and 70s and stuff like that. A lot of foreign Italian films like Dario Argento's stuff, a lot of Evil Dead and Dawn of the Dead and stuff like that. And so they're quite valuable now. I was surprised to see, I checked them up on eBay and they're going for $40, $50, $80 a pop. I was like, I don't think they're worth that much, but I have like a whole case of them, so I just thought I'd show you them before I get rid of them. Because I know some of you are interested in old movies and cult films and horror films and stuff like that, so for what it's worth, just take a look with me. So here's a bunch of them. These are from, I'd say, the late 90s. I used to collect them when I was in high school. They were about $10 a pop back then. And this was how I saw a lot of famous horror movies like Evil Dead and Army of Darkness and, Zombie. So as you can see, they're in these plastic clamshell cases. They don't get broken that way, and they look good on a shelf, kind of more like a book, right? And if you open it up, it's just regular tape. But usually what they did is, on the cover inserts, there was a reverse with information about the film. So if you took it out and turned it around, there's just basically behind-the-scenes trivia, some photos. It's interesting, I saw this on eBay recently going for $137. It's definitely not worth that much. If you can find it for 30 or 40 bucks, though, that's probably what you'd expect to pay. What's interesting about this movie is, here it's called Zombie by, is it Lucio Fulci or Lucio Fulci? I'm not sure the pronunciation. But it's an Italian film, and in Italy it was called Zombie 2. And the reason for that is because Dawn of the Dead was released in Italy as Zombie. So they called it Zombie 2 so people would mistakenly think it was a sequel, which it's not. And actually, this is pretty cool. This is a double cassette version of Dawn of the Dead, also by Anchor Bay. And it's got a cool fold-out thing with some photographs, behind-the-scenes pictures. The second tape is mostly trailers, commercials, stuff like that. They did a similar thing for Hellraiser. It's a double cassette of Hellraiser. Got some behind-the-scenes photos, and I think this is a message from Clive Barker. Special features. It was this was like sort of before DVD, or just as DVD was coming out, so to have trailers and behind-the-scenes stuff on VHS tape was like really novel back then. And then, you have Night of the Living Dead. This is actually, so, I think it was, what year is it? 1999. So in 1999, one of the persons who owned the rights to Night of the Living Dead, without George Romero's permission, decided to do a special edition and film new scenes. There was the special edition craze that George Lucas pretty much created. And they did a new musical score, and it's really, really bad. This is not that special edition. But this does have the new music score. So it's the original cut with a new music score, and I think it's actually pretty effective. This was how I first saw the film, so maybe I'm just biased in that sense. But yeah, there was a lot of backlash from the fans on that one, especially since the new scenes were really bad. And then you got, Evil Dead 2, digitally remastered, and there's a really good 30-minute documentary on this. It's on the DVD as well. Now this is interesting. Director's cut of Army of Darkness. This is a limited edition. So you can see there it says limited edition, and in fact this is limited. If you can see there, that's the number, the print number. There's only 50,000 of these in existence, so I think I'm going to hold on to this. This is number 5632. So what's the director's cut? I don't actually know if this would be even considered a director's cut, because I think Sam Raimi was pretty happy with the theatrical version, but not a whole lot of new scenes, just a lot of extensions, like the scene where Ash goes into the windmill and he's fighting the little guys. That's a lot longer. There's actually a love-making scene with Bruce Campbell and the princess, or whatever she is. And a couple extra shots here and there. The most notable thing is this was the first time I think anyone saw the alternate ending, which is actually much more fitting to the Evil Dead series, because this is basically Evil Dead 3, where he has to be sent back to his own time, and the wise man gives him a potion. And for each drop he takes, he's going to sleep for 100 years, and he takes one drop too many, wakes up 100 years in our future, and it's like the apocalypse. So, and he's like, no! Sort of a Planet of the Apes type of thing. Yeah, this is pretty cool. I've never seen this except for the one time that I bought it. Now, this is pretty interesting. This is Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, which is one of the best and least well-known zombie films I've seen. It actually predates Dawn of the Dead, and it's an English film. And now here, these films here are Dario Argento, who is an Italian filmmaker. This is Profondo Rosso, also known as Deep Red, Inferno, and then Demons and Demons 2, which in Italy were called Demon Eye, I believe is the original title. He produced these. He didn't direct them. Lamberto Bava directed them, who was the son of Mario Bava, another famous horror director. So his sort of genre that he works in is they're called Giallo, and they're kind of like a precursor to slasher films, where it's sort of a murder mystery and there's a killer going around and no one really knows who it is, and it's really weird but really interesting. And this is one of the most controversial films ever made, mostly because it's basically an exploitation revenge story, but what made it controversial is that there's a 45-minute rape scene in it. But it's actually a very misunderstood film. I wouldn't really recommend watching it. I mean, what's the point? This was the first time it had been widely released, so I picked it up. And then, for some reason, I have a copy of Mad Max in here. I don't know why. So you'll notice that they're all in these clamshell cases, like I was mentioning. Pretty nice. Fox Home Video was actually doing that at the same time, even before them, I think. Here's an example of Alien 3. This is their widescreen series, and they would put them in these types of cases as well. Yeah, so this was the first time I saw a lot of these movies, like Dawn of the Dead and Evil Dead 2, was through these tapes, which are apparently worth a lot of money now. I mean, they didn't make that many of them, and they're pretty obscure movies, at least they have a cult following. And of course, Anchor Bay also did non-horror movies like Repo Man. This is like a cult classic with Emilio Estevez and Harry Dean Stanton. Very cool film, very funny, recommend it. So there you go, guys. I just thought I'd do a quick show and tell of that, just because you don't see these things anymore, and even on eBay, they're kind of overpriced now. If you find them in the wild, expect to pay between $5 and $15, and if you're really selective, you just want it, go on eBay, don't pay more than $30, or at the most $40. Unless it's that, the limited numbered ones, where it's they only made 50,000 of them, those might be worth a bit of money, but you can get these for 30, 40 bucks maybe. I wouldn't pay anything more than that, really. I mean, they're all on DVD. It's not like this is the only place you can see these, just for the purpose of collecting. So yeah, I spent a long time, most of high school, collecting all that stuff. The problem is I haven't watched these in, a decade. If I wanted to, I have Zombie right here on DVD. If I wanted to, I have 4 different versions of Dawn of the Dead right here on DVD. And some of these you can get on Blu-ray now. So there's really no point except for collecting them. I don't display them anymore. They've been boxed up in these shoe boxes for the last 10 years. So I'm going to give them to a good home, to someone who would appreciate them. And I recommend watching most of these movies if you like sort of cult horror films and stuff like that. Most of them are very good. Some of them are cheesy. Like I said, I Spit on Your Grave is not for everyone, not for most people. But Deep Red's very good. The Demons film's very good. Obviously, the Evil Dead series is a classic. Repo Man even I would recommend. Anyway, very good films. At the time, this was really the only way to see these movies in a widescreen, uncut form. So Anchor Bay was a big deal back in the day for bringing these cult classics that were at the time in the 90s, before the internet, before torrents, before any Blu-ray and DVD really took off. So these were actually very important, and for me as a impressionable youth, really broadened my understanding and appreciation of cinema to be exposed to this stuff, like many people, for the first time, really ever in North America at least. And I guess that's about it. I'll see you guys next episode.